My husband lied about giving $10,000 to a friend in need, but I discovered he actually used it to buy a gift for his female coworker. When I confronted him, he said the company needs her and can't let her have problems. Hello everyone, I never imagined I'd find myself writing something like this, but here I am, sharing a story I never thought would be mine. My name is Emily, and I've been married to my husband, Mark, for 8 years. We've always been that couple people described as solid, the kind you'd expect to grow old together without any major bumps along the way. Our relationship has had its fair share of ups and downs, like any marriage, but trust was never something I thought we lacked. At least, not until recently. Mark and I have always shared everything, especially when it came to our finances. We believed that transparency was key to a healthy relationship, so we kept a joint bank account where every transaction was visible to both of us. That openness gave me a sense of security, a belief that no matter what life threw at us, we'd face it together. But as I'm learning now, sometimes what you don't see coming hurts the most. It started about a month ago. We were having dinner one night when Mark casually mentioned that his friend Dave was going through a rough patch. According to Mark, Dave's business had taken a hit, and he was struggling to pay for some unexpected medical expenses for his daughter. Mark said he decided to lend Dave $10,000 to help him out. It sounded like a noble gesture, the kind of thing Mark would do. He's always been generous to a fault, and I've admired that about him. I didn't question it at first. Why would I? Mark has always been honest with me, or so I thought. But over the following weeks, little things started to feel off. Whenever I brought up Dave or asked how things were going with his situation, Mark would brush it off with vague answers. He's managing, he'd say, or it's complicated. There was a nervousness in his voice that hadn't been there before, and I couldn't help but notice how he seemed to change the subject whenever I pressed for details. Then there were the late nights. Mark's job occasionally required him to stay late, but suddenly it became a regular thing, too regular. Deadlines, he'd explain, or last-minute meetings. I wanted to believe him, I really did. But something about the way he avoided eye contact, the way his phone was suddenly glued to him, always face down on the table or shoved deep in his pocket, it gnawed at me. The first real red flag came unexpectedly. I was sorting through some mail when I noticed a receipt tucked between a few bills. It was from an upscale jewelry store, one I'd always admired but never stepped foot in because of how extravagant it was. My heart skipped a beat. The date on the receipt matched the day Mark had said he was working late. The amount? Just shy of $10,000. My mind raced. Had he bought something for me? Our anniversary wasn't for another 6 months. Maybe it was a surprise gift? A vacation? I wanted to believe that, clung to it. But something didn't sit right. Why wouldn't he have just said something? And why the secrecy? I tried to push the doubts aside, but once that seed of suspicion was planted, it was impossible to ignore. I found myself checking our bank statements, something I usually never did beyond glancing at monthly summaries. And that's when the pieces started falling into place, pieces I didn't want to see. There was no transfer to Dave's account. No record of any medical bills or anything that aligned with the story Mark had given me. Instead, there was a large withdrawal matching the amount on the jewelry store receipt. The tension in our home became palpable. Every time Mark spoke, every excuse he gave, it felt like a lie cloaked in just enough truth to keep me questioning my own instincts. I'd catch him glancing at his phone, smiling at messages he quickly hid when I got too close. I started to wonder if I was going crazy, letting paranoia take over, but then I'd remember that receipt, that unexplained purchase. I didn't confront him immediately. Part of me hoped I was wrong, that there was some logical explanation I hadn't considered. But the nagging feeling wouldn't let up. I began noticing other subtle changes, his cologne lingering longer when he came home late, the way he suddenly seemed more concerned with his appearance. Little things that, on their own, might mean nothing. Together, they painted a picture I was too afraid to fully acknowledge. One night, unable to sleep, I found myself scrolling through Mark's social media. His activity seemed normal, nothing out of the ordinary. But then I stumbled upon a tagged photo from a coworker's account. There he was, at what looked like a fancy dinner, seated next to a woman I vaguely recognized from his office Christmas party. His arm was draped casually over the back of her chair, his smile a little too warm, a little too familiar. My stomach twisted. Was this the woman? Was this where the money had gone? Questions swirled in my mind, each more painful than the last. I wanted to scream, to demand answers, but instead, I sat there in the dark, my heart pounding, feeling the walls of my world start to crack. I wasn't sure what was worse, the betrayal or the not knowing. But one thing was becoming clear, something wasn't right. And I was determined to find out the truth, no matter how much it hurt. Determined to uncover the truth, I knew I had to dig deeper. Sleep eluded me as my mind spiraled with possibilities, each more painful than the last. What if Mark was having an affair? What if there was another explanation I just couldn't see? I oscillated between wanting to confront him and needing more proof. If I was wrong, accusing him of something so serious would shatter us. But if I was right, I wasn't sure I was ready for that reality. The next morning, while Mark was at work, I decided to call Dave. My hands trembled as I dialed his number. Dave and I weren't particularly close, but we'd shared enough conversations at gatherings for this not to seem completely out of the blue, at least, I hoped. When he answered, his tone was casual, unsuspecting. "Hey, Dave, it's Emily. I just wanted to check in. Mark mentioned you were going through a rough time. I hope everything's okay." There was a pause on the other end. Thanks, Emily. I appreciate the concern, but I'm not sure what you mean. Things are fine on my end. Why do you ask?" My stomach dropped. "Mark said he lent you some money to help with your daughter's medical bills?" Another pause, longer this time. Dave sounded genuinely confused. "I don't know what to say. I never asked Mark for money. My daughter's perfectly healthy. Are you sure he said it was me?" I mumbled something about must have been a misunderstanding and ended the call quickly, my heart pounding in my chest. There it was, confirmation that Mark had lied. Not just a white lie or a harmless omission, but a calculated deception. My world tilted, a nauseating mix of betrayal and disbelief washing over me. But why? Why fabricate a story about Dave? And where had the $10,000 really gone? Fueled by a cocktail of dread and determination, I returned to the bank records, combing through every detail. That's when I found it, a charge from an upscale boutique I knew specialized in designer handbags and accessories. The purchase date was the same day as the jewelry store receipt. 2 expensive gifts within days of each other. My mind raced back to the photo, the woman from Mark's office. Could it really be her? Needing answers, I did what I never thought I'd do. I drove to Mark's office. Part of me hoped I wouldn't see anything. Part of me knew I would. I parked a block away, heart hammering, and waited. Hours passed before I saw them. Mark and the woman, leaving together. Her laughter echoed across the parking lot, his hand briefly touching her lower back as he opened the car door for her. The familiarity between them was undeniable. And worse? She was wearing a necklace that looked suspiciously like something from the jewelry store receipt. I snapped a photo, my hands shaking, emotions swirling in a chaotic storm. Anger, heartbreak, confusion, they all collided in that moment. Was this an affair? Emotional cheating? Professional favoritism taken too far? I didn't know. All I knew was that my husband had spent $10,000 on a woman who wasn't me, and lied about it. Driving home, tears blurred my vision. I needed to confront him. But how? What would I say? What if he denied it, twisted things to make me doubt myself? Part of me wanted to believe there was some innocent explanation. Another part, the one growing louder with every passing moment, knew better. I spent the rest of the evening pacing, rehearsing conversations in my head. The weight of what I'd discovered pressed down on me, suffocating and inescapable. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't eat. All I could do was wait for Mark to come home, the confrontation looming like a storm on the horizon. What would he say? Would he admit to it? Would he lie again? I didn't know. But one thing was certain, the truth was about to come out, no matter how much it hurt. Time stretched endlessly as I waited for Mark to come home, the walls of our living room closing in on me with every passing second. My mind reeled with emotions, anger, heartbreak, confusion, all swirling together in a storm that refused to calm. I kept glancing at the door, heart pounding, rehearsing what I'd say, what I'd demand, how I'd hold up the dam of my emotions just long enough to get the truth. Every sound from outside, the hum of a passing car, the distant bark of a neighbor's dog, made my stomach twist tighter in knots. And then, the sound I'd been dreading. His keys jingling, the door creaking open. "Hey, Mark called out casually, kicking off his shoes like it was any other day. Like my world wasn't crumbling. I stood up, fists clenched, the photograph still fresh on my phone screen, burning a hole in my pocket. "Breathe, Emily. Stay calm." But calm was impossible. Not now. Not after everything. "We need to talk," I said, my voice barely holding steady. He paused, sensing the shift in the air. His smile faltered. "What's going on?" I didn't waste time with pleasantries. I pulled out my phone, opened the photo of him with her, the woman from his office, her necklace glinting under the restaurant lights, the same necklace I knew had cost thousands. I thrust the screen toward him. "Care to explain this?" His face paled. He opened his mouth, closed it, then glanced away. "It's not what you think," he stammered. "Oh, really?" "Because it looks exactly like what I think." My voice rose, fueled by the hurt and betrayal clawing at my chest. "I called Dave, Mark. He has no idea what I'm talking about because you lied. There was no loan for a sick daughter. No struggling friend. So tell me, where did that $10,000 go? Why her?" Mark rubbed the back of his neck, pacing like a trapped animal. "Look, it's complicated. Make it simple." I snapped. $10,000. Jewelry. A fancy dinner. Late nights. Her. Why? Silence stretched between us, thick and suffocating. And then, finally, he sighed, shoulders sagging under the weight of whatever excuse he'd conjured. "The company needs her," he said quietly. "She's important to a big project. She's been going through personal issues, and if she crumbles, the whole thing falls apart." I couldn't let that happen. I stared at him, disbelief giving way to fury. "So you thought buying her expensive gifts was the solution? What am I, Mark? Your wife, or just some placeholder while you play hero to your precious coworker?" "It wasn't like that," he insisted, holding up his hands as if that would calm me. "It wasn't personal. It was an incentive. Motivation. I didn't want her to leave the company. Motivation." I repeated, my laugh sharp and humorless. "Do you buy all your coworkers designer jewelry and handbags to keep them happy? Or just the ones you cozy up to at late-night dinners?" His face reddened. "You're twisting this." "No, Mark. You twisted this. You twisted our marriage, our trust, me. You lied to my face repeatedly. You snuck around like some high schooler hiding a secret girlfriend and expect me to what? Understand? Accept this?" Tears burned my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. Not now. Not in front of him. He reached for me. "Emily, please." I stepped back. "Don't." My voice broke, anger and heartbreak colliding in a wave that threatened to swallow me whole. "You chose her over me, Mark. Not just with the money, but with every lie, every late night, every text you hid. You chose her." His expression twisted with guilt, regret flickering in his eyes. "I didn't mean to hurt you. But you did." The room swam around me, the walls closing in. "And the worst part? You're standing here justifying it. Like I'm supposed to be okay with you spending our savings on another woman because the company needs her. What about what I need? What we need?" Silence. Heavy. Deafening. "I didn't think it would blow up like this," he mumbled. "That's the problem, Mark. You didn't think. Or maybe you did, and you just didn't care." His shoulders slumped. "What do you want me to say?" "Everything." I wanted him to fix this. To somehow erase the lies, the betrayal. To rewind time to when I still believed in us. But that was gone, shattered beyond repair. "I don't know," I whispered. "I really don't." We stood there, two people who once shared everything, now separated by an ocean of hurt and words we couldn't take back. Finally, I spoke, my voice soft but resolute. "I need space. Emily." "No." I can't look at you right now. I need to figure out if I can ever trust you again, because right now, I can't. He nodded slowly, eyes downcast. I'm sorry. But sorry felt hollow, a band-aid on a wound that ran far too deep. I grabbed my coat, keys jingling in my trembling hand. I'm staying at my sister's. Don't call me. Don't chase me. I need time. He didn't argue. Didn't fight. Just stood there, the weight of everything crashing down around us. As I stepped into the cold night, air sharp against my skin, tears finally spilled over. I had loved him, trusted him. And now? I didn't know what was left to salvage. Maybe nothing. Maybe everything. All I knew was that the man I thought I knew, the man I married, wasn't the man standing in that living room. And maybe, just maybe, he never had been. Trust is the foundation of any relationship, and when it cracks, everything starts to crumble. I walked away that night not knowing if Mark and I would survive this, but knowing that needed to survive this. For me. For the woman who refused to be a second choice. The question now is, can trust ever be rebuilt? Or is betrayal a wound that never truly heals? Only time will tell.